Welcome to Quit to Win, the show where we explore the moments people had to let go of the system, dated belief, and comfort norm in order to create meaningful change. Guest is Tom Joseph, entrepreneur, innovator, and civil reform advocate. He's the founder of the book Minder, where he pioneered remote first work model in business, and also the creator of American Main Street Party, a bold attempt to redefine how candidates are nominated for Congress. Atom Vision is centered on a moneyless nominating system, a people primary model designed to remove financial influence from the nomination process and return power to citizens. His work sits at the intersection of technology, democracy, and system thinking, asking a bold question. What if we could fix our election?
Thank you. Great introduction. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. So, Tom, when you reflect on your journey, what is the first system, belief, or idea you had to quit in order to start building this vision?
I had to really give up on my first career, which was in factory automation. My career, I have an engineering degree from Carnegie Mellon. I worked for one of the I'm from Pittsburgh, went to work at one of the companies in Pittsburgh, a time big company called Westinghouse. And Westinghouse used to be one of the largest employers in Pittsburgh, and worked in manufacturing and automation. And that was kind of what I was trained to do. But I stumbled on an idea. I worked in that field for 9 years, and I did work in a startup, and I got fired. So I guess I don't know if I really quit to win, but I did kind of quit that career track. Like I remember going on interviews, and the one was for like a big consulting firm, and I was definitely qualified, but they told the headhunter something like, "This guy doesn't want to do this." Like, and I just was done with that. And I
Yeah.
had this other idea to start this company, that's really based on just something I'd done years earlier for my dad. I'd come up with the idea for bookminders in 1984. This is
Mm.
now 1991. So I sat on this idea for like 7 years. And even when I started it, I was kind of like half doing it, half consulting, but I was persistent. And I kept the process that we discovered early on, and my sister, coming into the office just for a very short period of time, gathering the data, and then going to work from home, that seemed to break down the barrier of people, not trusting, like mailing it or, relying on the client to get the data for you. We went and got it every week. And when we got it every week, because of personal computers, we could drop off an update. I mean, in the early days, we were taking those micro floppy disks. That was our delivery system. We didn't have the internet. We were physically taking the data file. They had a copy of QuickBooks on their system. We had a copy of QuickBooks on our system. Now, we obviously have everything up on the web, but back then that was it. It was very, as we called a sneaker net, because we were walking this to the client.
Yeah, so true. Amazing. I think it's really lovely, especially when you make reference of at one point you were being fired, but you're actually looking for jobs. But at one point, it's no longer sits with you again to actually do something related to that. Yeah, amazing. So, what assumption about politics or democracy did you have to unlearn before creating your own model?
Well, I kind of got retired out of my business. Um, I ran bookminders for a long time, from
Mm,
1991 till about mid 2000, 15, 2008, that around that time, I got some real estate, and I got involved in a project, and it kind of got me out of the business. And the woman who was COO at the time had really been done a great job, running the operations. And I, at that point, kind of turned everything over to them. And I realized that they really didn't need me. And so they kind of would lead, follow, or get out of the way. I felt it was time for me to really get out of the way. I still own the
yeah,
business, and I have a great relationship with the management team, and I'm involved, but they've taken ownership for it. And that was kind of what led me to quit, was realizing that, it's probably a better place without me.
yeah, yeah. Amazing, amazing. So,
What's
was there a
interesting
moment?
about no,
Yeah,
what's interesting about the dynamic is that it turned out to be a company that is 90 some percent women. The management team is all women. They average 20 years with the company. And it works beautifully. I was for a long time the only manager that was a man. And I grew up with three older sisters, so I think I was okay in that environment.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing, amazing. So was there a moment you realized that the current system was not just flawed, but fundamentally misaligned?
It's during the COVID. I just, is applying for a PPP loan. Everybody thought, man, I'm going to lose my business. I spent my life building this thing up,
Yeah.
and we had think of March to 2021. Nobody knew what the heck was going on, and I was, uh, I mean, March 2020. I was just panicked, and so I'm applying for this loan and I'm watching TV and everybody fighting with each other. And I'm thinking, partisanship is going to kill each other. It's going to kill us, not the disease, the partisanship. And I made a commitment that if I got this loan, I would pay it for. I'd figure out, I'd do something. I wouldn't run for office. I'd form a committee. And one thing is that whatever I did couldn't require any law changes because I'm
Mm,
65 years old and I want to live doing, not die trying. And, so I had to find
yeah.
something that actually I could do. And I had this idea of a contest. And everybody's telling me it was illegal because of the way I originally designed it was illegal. Like I was plowing down this path that I didn't really understand election law, but it kept me on this path. And the election attorney I was working with was running for Congress himself, and he really wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. And when I finally got an opportunity, he lost, and I finally got an opportunity to present my ideas. They're like, "You can't do that," and I was like, and I didn't really want to use a super PAC like this. I don't know how much you know about super PACs, but they're like this thing that everybody believes is destroying our system. So I just couldn't wrap my head around using that. But to make my system work, if I used a system, I could do everything. Basically, deliver election
Mm,
reform. If I use something, I hated. And that was like a big conceptually. But when I had this realization the next day, I went in to the attorney and I was like, hey, what about this? What if I use the party to basically be this IT company that's building the app and the super PAC, the marketing department, and the local committees, we have local political committees are almost like Olympic organizing committees that are running the contests, and then the candidate committees, what the candidates, we more or less say the rule is to get the super PAC money, you can't, your candidate committee can only last one cycle. You can't have a war chest. And this delivers complete election reform. We just
yeah.
operate under this paradigm instead of the one we have. That was
Yeah.
my aha moment. That was when I was there like, "Oh my god, I am gonna put a lot of I quit to begin," that was like this whole cycle. All of a sudden, I'm working 40 hours a day like I did when I started Bookminders, and more I can't think about anything else. You get
Yeah.
obsessed.
Wow. That was really, really a whole lot. So what personal, professional, or comfort zone did you have to leave behind to pursue that idea?
It I don't know, it's gotta happen. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really a kind of a nirvana moment. I remember when I thought of Bookminders, the same kind of thing. I just had this moment where I was saying, "Wow, this is in 1984 is when the Macintosh computer came out," and I'm thinking, this is going to be in everybody's homes, and there's a lot of women that want to work and skilled. They've gone to college, and at that point in the mid '80s, if you were college educated women, and we were all of a sudden graduating a lot of college educated women, there just weren't good opportunities if you required flexibility or needed, to take care of your kids. The workforce was just not flexible. I was at the dawn of that, and I realized that this would happen, and all I had to do is pour my energy into it. So when I had this moment again, literally 4 decades later, um, I had that same kind of feeling like, wow, I think I really uncovered something, and if I put my time into it, it'll pay off. Not
Amazing. Amazing.
financially. I'm not
Yeah.
into this for the money. It's really about, wow, if you have a chance to change things,
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. So you describe a people primary system. What inspired the structures behind it?
fairness. You know, I I'm not a liberal or conservative. I'm a Libra. You know the Libra,
Yeah,
that's my
yeah.
success.
At the intersection between both of them. Yeah, amazing. Also,
But
how
it's
do you
really,
make
it's really not about red versus blue. It's about fixed versus fair.
amazing? So how do you make decision when you are working on something that challenge an entire system?
You have to find, this is really, if I did this like a political party, I'd fail. So what I'm trying to do is do this like a business and just get to the next step of
Mm,
the business plan. That's all I've done all my life. So if I feel like, hey, the next thing we got to do is get this beta release out and get it into people's hands and get traction and get people and get small donations, that's the next step. We Until we do that, we can't even think about an election. And I think what happens with the idea of a third party or an alternate party, they got to win an election.
yeah, yeah,
So
amazing.
and the system is rigged against that. And what I'm trying to do is create another system, that actually creates that. Think about these people that compete in the Olympics. You don't know who they are, but if they go through the qualifying and the preliminaries and and finally get to the gold medal or at least get to the finals, you're going to buy their Wheaties. And that's kind of the idea here is that people will follow this, and this will be something that's going on every week. There'll be a result that they'll say, "Hey, did my people make the cut?" And we're going to use a system where you can do approval voting. So when there's a lot of people in the field, you could select um, all the people that match your values. And so this is it's a moderating concept of approval voting. And so if you feel 50, 75 people, they're going to have to weigh in on the issues that they feel are going to come before Congress, the constituents to be able to go say, hey, these are the ones that match me, and these 50, these 20 match. I'll just approve them all. Let's see who makes the top 20. And it
Yeah,
works kind of like that, and more of an American Idol approach. This whole thing started with a joke. They're like,
yeah,
we do a better job picking the next American Idol than we do the next representative in Congress. And it just kind of sparked the
yeah,
thought, if we use, nobody rigs you can't buy American Idol title. They make sure the process is fair and you only gain access to those contestants through that portal. We basically have to do that. It's one thing we do good in America is reality
yeah,
shows. At least let's turn this into a good reality show
yeah,
instead of the bad reality show we have right now.
yeah. Thank you. This is really amazing. Also, how do you respond to people who says the system cannot be changed without new law?
Try to stop me.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing, amazing. Also, what has
No, I mean,
surprised you
I
the
do think that it's about marketing, and it's about finding early adopters. It's getting back to the way technologies disrupt is that
mm,
you don't waste your time with the disbelievers. You find the believers, and you get
mm,
on a podcast if they have 100 listeners or 1,000 listeners, a certain segment. It's not huge of people that get it and they'll go. The other people are stuck in the past. I'm not going to worry about them because we really
yeah,
only have to raise enough money to do this in a small number of districts. We don't have to change the whole system. We just have to kind of break it in certain parts. And then it really makes election reform possible. As long as this is a two-party system, it's not going to change because that's the one thing they agree on is the method by which they get elected, which is easy. They don't want competition. So we're going to create it. They can't stop it.
yeah. Amazing. Yeah, by actually recruiting the early adopter and just yeah, keep going. Amazing. Also, what has surprised you the most about resistance or support you have received so far?
Well, the surprising is really getting into the mainstream media, getting them to really take this seriously. I don't know if they sense that this is something that, threatens your ecosystem. I think anybody
Yeah.
that has been, whether it's, places like, I don't even want to mention them because there's no reason to really upset them, but I've gone to places that are recognizable nonprofits that are into election reform who basically aren't helping. They have access to donors and people and the ability to elevate the message and spread the word, and they really don't want to because they have donors too. And, they
Mm,
worry that if donations come to me, that donations won't go to them. And it's the same thing that's wrong with the current system, that the parties, they care more about their donors than what's good for the country. And we have the same issues going on in election reform that people who are into, I don't, I'm into my thing too, but they want ranked choice voting. They want open primaries. They want proportional representation. There's a lot of things that people want to do. Unfortunately, they have to break down the barriers that the two-party system has set up, and that's nearly impossible and proving to be impossible. Whenever they make two steps forward, there's a step coming backward. They're pushing back and reversing the gains that they get. This operates within the system. I don't see how they break this.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So what have you learned about people and power while working on this initiative?
What do I learn? I mean, they really don't help. I
Yeah,
mean, I think, yeah, we're really trying to implement the system the founders wanted, which was a system we the people, of the people, by the people, for the people. And that's not the system we have now. There's a very, very not even 1%ers are really in this political and economic elite club. This is the 10th of the percenters and the 0.1 percenter. So, you know, I'm a 1%er. I'm not in this club. So I've done
yeah,
pretty well, and it's a far leap to be, in those circles, and I think the founders understood that long term that's problematic, and I think you see what's happening now where, you know, it's a very authoritarian centric, the executive branch has way more power. Both parties, um, want to run the big agenda from presidents. That's the way things are now, and there's really legislation supposed to stand on its own. Wasn't supposed to be people bargaining. You put this in the bill if you put that in the bill. I mean, that's not democracy.
yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah. So lastly, for someone listening now who feel powerless about politics or system, what is the first thing they need to quit in their thinking?
Well, that things can't be done. I think this is kind of like the Matrix. I don't know if they have to take the red pill or the blue pill or whatever, but you have to realize that the system can operate different, and people have a hard time even just wrapping their head around this idea. That's why we're trying to bring it to life first. There's a video on the website. If you go to mainstreetparty.org, they go to a page called A Brand New Way. There's a 1-minute video that kind of gives a quick synopsis how it works, and then very soon we'll have a demo app on the website, and we'll have the contest kind of like cycling through every day would represent a different round, and people will be able to play with the app and see how it works. But ultimately, people believe that this will work, then I think the donations will come forth. We
Yeah,
can't compete
amazing.
in elections without a lot more money.
Yeah, so true. Amazing. Thank you so much. This has really been amazing conversation. And I must say it's really a pleasure having on the show. So from our audience who would love to reach out to you, either to discuss one or two, or to actually more like some couples of questions they will have for you, how can they reach out to you and where's the best platform?
Like I said, mainstreetparty.org. There's a contact thing there on the website. My email address is T as in Tom, S as in Sam, Joseph, like the first name at mainstreetparty.org. But there's ways to contest on the website. I would like people to sign that we have a change.org petition. If you want to show support, that's a way that we can show traction. So showing, to get donors, we can get donors without making people donate. Just show that we have support and traction. And then that, I think, eventually leads to donations. And buy
Yeah,
our cool
amazing.
merch. We have some really cool stuff on the website.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. Your work challenger.
All right.
Yeah, challenge people to rethink not just politics, but the participation itself and what it means to take ownership of system. We often feel stuck inside. Yeah, this is really amazing. And definitely the link is going to be on the show notes for my audience to reach out. Once again, an honor and a pleasure having you on the show, Tom.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.